I'm a licensed psychologist with 30 years of clinical experience. Ask me anything.
Why is it so hard to trust my own feelings and intuition?
I hear this question a lot. Why is it so hard to trust my own feelings and intuition? And honestly, it's one of the most human struggles there is. You might feel like your emotions are confusing, unreliable, or even wrong, and that can be exhausting. But here's the truth. Your difficulty trusting yourself doesn't mean something is broken. It means your brain and your nervous system have learned certain survival patterns over years, sometimes decades. Let me start with a story. I worked with a young woman, we'll call her Sarah. Sarah came to me saying, I never know if I'm making the right choices. I second guess everything, even small things, and I feel like I have no inner compass. She had a very loving upbringing, so on the surface, everything seemed fine. But as we talked, she realized that her parents, while supportive, had very strong expectations. When she expressed her feelings, they often dismissed them, not maliciously, but with phrases like, you're overreacting, or, that's not a big deal. Over time, Sarah learned to ignore her own internal signals and rely on external validation instead. This is extremely common. Research in developmental psychology and attachment theory shows that children who are conditioned to prioritize others' emotions over their own often develop a weakened sense of internal trust. Ainsworth, 1978, Bowlby, 1980. Your feelings are like a compass, but if you've been told, explicitly or subtly, that your compass isn't reliable, it's no wonder you second-guess yourself. Here's another piece that surprises a lot of people: neuroscience. The part of your brain that processes internal signals, the insula, works closely with your prefrontal cortex, which helps you make decisions. If, as a child or young adult, you repeatedly experienced feedback that contradicted or invalidated your feelings, your brain learned to dampen those internal signals. They're still there, but your mind treats them as background noise. You're not wrong, your brain is just cautious. Now, here's a little hook for you. Have you ever felt a gut reaction to something, a warning or a sense of excitement, only to ignore it and later realize you were right? That gut feeling is your intuition, and the more you've ignored it in the past, the harder it is to trust. It's like a muscle that atrophies when it isn't used. But it's not just childhood or biology. Life experiences reinforce the pattern. People who've been criticized, manipulated, or even subtly dismissed in relationships often learn to suppress their own instincts to avoid conflict or rejection. Take, for example, Michael, a client in his 40s. Michael was always described as level-headed and dependable, yet he struggled to make simple decisions without seeking reassurance from others. In his relationships, when he trusted his own feelings, he sometimes faced criticism or disagreement, which reinforced the idea that his intuition was unreliable. Over years, this pattern became automatic: look outward, not inward. Social and cultural factors play a role too. Many societies reward conformity and devalue individual emotional authority, especially in children or young adults. Women, for example, are often socialized to prioritize harmony over self-expression, while men may be taught to dismiss feelings altogether. Both pathways can lead to a similar outcome: mistrust of internal guidance. Here's another hook to think about. Imagine the last time you made a decision purely based on your intuition. Did you feel fear, doubt, or guilt? That emotional noise often isn't a reflection of the quality of your feelings. It's the echo of past experiences where trusting yourself felt unsafe. Another thing I notice in my practice is that some people have anxiety-driven hyperanalysis. Their brains get stuck in loops. What if my feeling is wrong? What if I overreact? What if I hurt someone? This is not weakness. It's a survival mechanism that has become overactive. Your nervous system learned that being cautious and hyper-aware protects you, but now it's protecting you from feelings that are actually safe and valid. Finally, here's a small but important fact. Studies in emotional intelligence show that self-trust can be rebuilt with intentional practice, including journaling, mindfulness, and guided reflection. Goleman, 1995. Scott et al., 2001. People who systematically reconnect with their internal signals gradually develop confidence in their own feelings. And yes, it takes time, but every small step counts. So how do you start trusting yourself again? First, notice and name the internal signals you feel, even small ones. The sensation of excitement, tension, discomfort, or hesitation is data. Label it. Say to yourself, this is what I'm feeling right now. That simple act begins to strengthen your internal compass. Second, explore the origin of your mistrust. Was there a time when trusting yourself led to criticism or rejection? Recognize that the pattern served a purpose. It was a survival skill, but it does not have to define your present. Third, practice small decisions without seeking validation. Start with low-stakes choices. What to eat, what to wear, how to spend a few free hours. Each time you honor your feeling, you send a message to your brain. I am safe listening to myself. Over time, your internal signals regain clarity and authority. Here's another real-life example. Karen, a mid-30s client, always deferred decisions to her partner, fearing she would make the wrong choice. We began by having her make small independent decisions each day. What movie to watch, what route to take to work, what book to read. At first, she doubted herself constantly, but she documented her experiences and reflected on the outcomes. After a few months, her confidence in her feelings grew, and she began trusting her instincts in more significant areas of life, career decisions, relationship boundaries, even conflict resolution. Finally, remember this. Trusting your feelings isn't about perfection. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. Self-trust is about learning to be present with your emotions, listening to them, and giving yourself permission to act, even when uncertainty exists. Every time you honor your feelings, your intuition grows stronger. Every time you ignore them, it weakens. So if you're struggling, know that it's not a flaw, it's a learned pattern. And the good news? Patterns can be unlearned, rewired, and strengthened with intention and practice. Your feelings are valid, your intuition is real, and step by step, you can trust yourself again. Learning to trust your own feelings and intuition is one of the most transformative skills a person can develop, and its effects ripple across your life in profound ways. When people begin this journey, the first thing that changes is often self-esteem, the sense of your own value, your internal validation system. Many clients come to me saying, I feel like I'm constantly seeking approval, and I don't even know what I want myself. This is incredibly common. When your life has been guided by others' expectations, your internal compass gets silenced. You've learned to look outside for confirmation because, somewhere along the line, you were taught that your feelings weren't enough, that your instincts were risky or wrong. But the moment you start listening to yourself, even in small ways, something remarkable begins. Your brain begins to relearn that your feelings are valid signals. Neuroscience shows that repeated practice of paying attention to your internal state strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for self-regulation and decision-making, while gradually reducing overactivity in the amygdala, which drives anxiety and fear responses. Simply put, your nervous system starts to understand, it's safe to listen. I can trust myself. I remember working with a client named Lisa. For years, she deferred every choice to her partner, her boss, or even friends. She felt paralyzed when decisions were required, from simple things like what to cook for dinner to major life choices about her career. We started with small steps. What do you feel like eating today? Which route feels easiest for you? At first, she doubted every answer. But over weeks, she noticed a subtle but important shift. She felt more confident, more present in her body, and surprisingly relieved. This is the first taste of how self-esteem transforms when you reclaim trust in your own feelings. It's not just about confidence, it's about recognizing that your inner life has authority, that your desires and needs matter, and that you are allowed to prioritize them. Self-esteem doesn't just improve in isolation, it has direct effects on relationships. Many of my clients have reported that when they start trusting themselves, they stop over-accommodating others, they speak more clearly about their limits, and they stop feeling resentful. Imagine the difference between someone who always says yes because they fear rejection, and someone who can say yes because they genuinely want to, or no because it's aligned with their well-being. The difference in quality of relationships is staggering. Take John, for example. He spent decades being the peacemaker in his family, always smoothing over conflict, never voicing his opinions, and never saying no. When he began a process of reconnecting with his intuition, he started expressing his preferences, small things at first, like choosing a restaurant or deciding how to spend the weekend. At first, his siblings resisted, they were used to his automatic agreement. But over time, relationships deepened. They could see him as a full person, not just the person who keeps everyone else comfortable. This is crucial. Trusting yourself does not harm relationships, it transforms them into authentic connections. People start to relate to the real you rather than a curated, safe version designed to avoid conflict. Emotional well-being is also dramatically affected. When clients begin trusting their feelings, they often report a decrease in anxiety, indecision, and chronic tension. Why? Because so much mental energy goes into monitoring and second-guessing oneself. When that energy is freed up, it can be redirected toward creativity, problem-solving, and joy. Neuroscientific studies show that ignoring one's emotions over long periods increases stress hormone levels, particularly cortisol, which affects mood, sleep, and physical health. By reconnecting with feelings, people regulate their nervous system more effectively, feel more grounded, and experience greater resilience. Here's a common pattern I see. When someone begins trusting themselves, they encounter waves of discomfort. Old habits die slowly. They might feel guilt, fear, or doubt. This is normal and expected. But these are signs of growth, not failure. I worked with Maria, who had spent her entire adult life prioritizing others. When she began saying no, she experienced anxiety spikes and guilt, but also moments of exhilaration. She felt alive in ways she hadn't in years. Her emotional range expanded. She reported feeling more present, more connected, and even more empathetic, paradoxically, because she was no longer depleted from overgiving. Another critical element is that trusting yourself strengthens your decision-making skills. When your inner signals are disregarded for decades, the habit of deferring to others becomes ingrained. As you begin to acknowledge and act on your feelings, the brain forms new neural pathways. You start making choices faster, with more clarity, and often with better outcomes, because your decisions are informed by your authentic priorities rather than fear or external pressure. This boosts confidence and further reinforces self-esteem. It's a positive feedback loop. But let's pause here, because there's a subtle trap I want to mention. Sometimes people think that trusting themselves means never making mistakes. That's not the case. Mistakes are inevitable, and they are part of learning. The difference is that when you trust yourself, mistakes are learning experiences, not evidence of being wrong or bad. Clients who internalize this approach report less shame, less rumination, and a greater sense of emotional freedom. Over time, as self-trust grows, emotional well-being expands into other areas. People report better boundaries because they recognize what feels safe or uncomfortable. Reduced anxiety because they stop second-guessing themselves constantly. Stronger authenticity, because they speak and act in alignment with their values. Healthier relationships, because they attract people who respect their autonomy and avoid relationships based on fear or obligation. Greater resilience, because they can rely on their own judgment and uncertainty. And here's a final insight. Trusting yourself doesn't mean isolation. It means being fully present in the world while anchored in your own experience. Your inner compass becomes a guide for navigating life, rather than a source of conflict or fear. People often say to me, "It feels like I'm finally living as myself." That sense of authenticity is inseparable from well-being. It's the cornerstone of a life where self-esteem, relationships, and emotional health all reinforce each other. So, if you're struggling to trust your feelings today, know this: it's not a flaw, it's a learned pattern. And like any skill, it can be rebuilt with patience, reflection, and intentional practice. Each small step of listening to yourself, each decision made in alignment with your feelings, strengthens self-esteem, nurtures authentic relationships, and cultivates lasting emotional well-being. Over time, the rewards are profound. A life lived with clarity, connection, and a deep sense of trust in your own inner guidance. And finally, remember this: trusting yourself is a journey, not a sudden leap. There will be moments of doubt, fear, or even guilt, and that's perfectly normal. Every time you pause, listen, and honor your feelings, you are reclaiming a part of yourself that may have been quiet for years. Each choice made in alignment with your inner compass strengthens your self-esteem, deepens your relationships, and nurtures your emotional well-being. Think of it like walking back into a room you've long avoided. At first, it feels unfamiliar, maybe even a little uncomfortable. But as you step further in, as you explore and reclaim the space, it slowly becomes yours again. That room is your mind, your heart, your inner guidance, and it has always been waiting for you. So, start small, notice your feelings, name them, act on them when you can. Trust that your intuition is real, valid, and wise. Over time, you'll find that not only can you trust yourself, you want to. And in that trust, you'll discover the freedom, clarity, and connection you've been searching for all along. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss new episodes, where we explore more questions about your mind, your feelings, and your life.